All right, we're back with another roundtable. We got a great panel, man. We got Boxing Wave coming back after a long absence. Good to see you, brother. How you been, man?
Good to see you guys. Everything is great, man. Can't
That's
complain.
awesome, awesome. And got my brother from across the pond. Base, the kid, is in the house, ladies and gentlemen.
Salutations, people. Always happy to be here, no matter the time of the night it might be.
And one of my old school brothers from back of the day, Big Dog Lukey Boxing, is with us, ladies and gentlemen.
And I'm hella young though. Just to clarify, I'm real young. So I
You're
just want to
younger than
clarify, even
me.
though I've been around a while, I'm still very young. So
You're
let's just
younger than
clarify.
me. I've lived more years than I got left, baby. But let's just jump right into it. Big fight this weekend. Uh, Base's neck of the woods. Liam Smith versus Chris Eubank Jr. And so much has been talked about the Conor Benn situation, and Chris Eubank is forever going to be tied to that as well. Big question I have, and I want to go around the panel here is Liam Smith a tougher and more credible opponent than Conor Benn was? And how is this fight going to play out? Is this going to be a better fight than most people anticipate? We'll start with you, Base. What are your thoughts on this one?
Will it be a better fight than most people anticipate? No, because people think it's actually going to be a very good fight. Is he a tougher opponent than Conor? Well, yeah, in the sense that he's a similar size to Chris. While he competes at 154, that's really probably because he does have a bit of excess weight a lot of the time. He keeps himself in relative shape, but he's a bit of a chunkier guy. He has that fat to be able to strip off to get to 154, but he can't really maintain that sort of size. I think they had the check weigh-ins yesterday, and he actually came. He was weighing heavier than Chris was at that point. So
Heard that.
the size disparity isn't that different. So, even though Chris does like to take on opponents that are smaller than him these days, this one is, more comparable. He's got a much higher level of experience than Conor had. But again, the one thing that Chris did say, which I do agree with, is because Conor's never been beaten, he's been put down, but he's never been beaten. So he's still got that, undefeated mentality. You're going to have to take me through hell to stop me. Whereas, Liam's lost 3 times before, or is it 4 times now? No, I think it's 4 times now. So, when it just comes down to that, maybe he might have that bit of, this is getting harder than I thought. Maybe it's time to, to call it a day, or do I still have it in me? Because he is the slightly older guy, and as he said, if he loses to Chris, he's got to pack it in. So maybe he's got that in the back of his mind. But in terms of a technical bout, I feel like it will be a much better fight.
So let me ask you this real quick. Are people giving Liam Smith a shot here? Because from what I'm hearing, everyone's picking Eubank by stoppage.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few people picking.
Okay.
I mean, everyone thinks it's going to go points, but the majority are basically is like he's going to have to, because he always finishes the fights strong, and having these extra 6 pounds to play with means that he's not going to be depleted in the energy reserves. He's going to have more, glucose, more body fat to be able to pull from in those tougher rounds. And he is a 12-round fighter, always has been. Whereas Chris was the 12-round fighter when he went up to 168, and now seems to maybe be more of an economical fighter, having come back down to 160. So if the fight goes late, provided, Chris hasn't totally dominated the whole entire first half and maybe even a part of the second, then it could, Liam Smith definitely does have a chance. I mean, I'm personally not picking him, but I can see how he wins this fight. There's a couple ways as well.
Okay. Look, am I missing something here? Or can Liam Smith make a go at it here against Chris Eubank Jr.? What are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think that it's a clear A side versus B side fight, like we typically see. But this is an A side versus B side you can talk yourself into. I respect you so much, Beeb. I came with stats, right? I'm a stats guy, so I came with stats. So in the Smith fight when he fought Munguia, he threw 702 punches. I believe when Chris Eubank Jr. fought George Groves, he threw 421 punches. So just looking at it from the stats, Smith is a smaller man, but he almost doubles the output of punches. Now, keep in mind, Eubank Jr., bigger man. This is a style that's built for him. He typically shines when guys come to him. He has trouble when guys are kind of in the mid-range and don't do that. But I do think the story of the fight, like we go back to the old HBO days, is how will the punch output play out in the fight? Because I think that the output of the punches will tell who's in control. And if Smith is able to start to throw a lot of punches, this could get into it being an interesting fight. But I think that we've seen Eubank Jr. had a lot more success against this come forward style. Smith is a bit older, and add to the fact that Smith has only had one fight at middleweight, I believe, prior, that this is supposed to basically be an opportunity for Eubank Jr. to shine. But I think he has to earn this opportunity to shine rather than be gifted this.
Okay. Wave, has Liam Smith bit off more than he can chew here, or will he shine against Eubank Jr.? Will this be a better fight than I think it will be?
Well, as far as comparing it to Conor Benn, I think his size would definitely give him more of an advantage over Conor Benn. But I think in that fight there, I was more curious because of the catch weight, and I was trying to figure out how good this 60% of Chris was going to be. I thought that he would definitely be at a disadvantage there a little bit because of the catch weight, him coming down, him never fighting below 160, and being 32, 33 years old, doing it now. He's even fought as high as 168. So I think that was the thing that made me curious about how the fight was going to go. If we're debating how the two are like of equal size, like Conor Benn, I think his style fits a little bit better going into the fight with Chris Eubank, in my opinion. But Liam's experience, his size, his durability, more proven, be a tough, durable fighter. I think Liam Smith is probably the better fight, but I still don't think it's going to be enough for him to win. Like, I don't see Liam Smith having much of a chance of pulling it off. All right. I think Chris has always shined at fighters at this level, even when he struggled a little bit. Now, I know he struggled a little bit against Liam Williams in his last fight. But he still was able to pull the fight off because of the amount of knockdowns he scored in the fight, So with that being said, the thing that I'm curious about Chris Eubank is this style with Roy Jones. I think he needs to blend a little bit of his old style, like what we saw against DeGale, what we saw against Saunders back in the day, where he was aggressive, more of a bully type of fighter, mixed in with this new, stay on the outside moving type of Roy Jones style that he has. I think that was a problem against Liam Williams. By the time he got to the 6th round, slowed down quite a bit. And that's when Williams started to come back and pick up some rounds in there, the rounds that he didn't get knocked down in. So I think he needs to find a way to be a bully on the inside while being a mover. I think he should start out moving, controlling the fight with the jab, and then later on the fight, really go to war with Liam Smith and beat him at his own game. And I think that's how the fight could play out, But I'm not giving Liam that much of a chance, but I expect it to go the distance.
Okay. Yeah, see, I see it as Eubank stopping him probably in the middle rounds. I just think that I like Liam Smith, but he's just very aggressive. He's going to come forward. He's going to try and get close, and I just think he's going to get clipped on the way in. I think he's going to get hit with one of those, short hook, half hook, half uppercut type 45 punches on the way in, because he does kind of put his head down, and I think he's going to try to bob into something. He's going to bob and weave his way in, and I can just see Eubank just catching him with one of those 45-degree angle type hybrid punches and just getting him out of there. That's just how I see it. I hope I'm wrong, though. I mean, I'd like to see Base's assessment play out, that it's going to be a tough fight, and probably go the distance. But we'll see what happens. But yeah, I think the styles are going to mesh well together, because you have two guys who are offensive minded, right? But one guy is a much more fast-paced type fighter. Another guy is looking to be that sniper with that one killer shot. So we'll see how it plays out, man. Very interesting matchup. So another fight that's being talked about we hear Anthony Joshua is tentatively scheduled to return in April, and there's been a couple names thrown around there. And I guess the latest name has been Jermaine Franklin, the gentleman that just had a tough fight with Dillian White. And I actually had that fight a draw. Some people had Franklin winning. Very, very competitive fight, more competitive fight than I thought it would be, and a lot of people thought it would be. Demsey McKean, I think Base was actually mentioned as well for Anthony Joshua opponent as well. Am I correct in that? So now I'm hearing that Franklin is their front runner. What fight do you think is a better matchup, a better fight right now for Anthony Joshua? Who would be the better fit for him on the comeback trail? We'll start with you, Lukey. Who do you like better, Franklin or Demsey McKean as a return opponent for Anthony Joshua?
Hand on the King James Bible, like I'm in the court of law. I got to clarify something.
Sure.
I don't want to. Okay, so I got to clarify. When we say better, do we mean for the fans or for Anthony Joshua's career? Because he is a business. So clarify that for me first.
I'm going to say for Anthony Joshua, because this is a rebuilding fight, right? You know,
so I think Jermaine Franklin is the better opponent because he just had a fight where a lot of people feel that he had beaten Dillian White. I think history tells us guys like Jermaine Franklin are very good fighters, but they struggle to have encore performances. The sequel is never as good as that first moment. So this is a way to rebuild, get a fantastic victory against a guy who's a very reputable fighter who has a great amateur pedigree, but I think is going to be starstruck and also fighting himself and some emotions at the same time as he's fighting Joshua. When you fight Joshua, you're not just fighting Joshua, you're fighting the big crowds, you're fighting interviews from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. and having to figure out how to train at the same time. Those things tend to break most fighters if they're not mentally sound. The fight I would like to see is Martin Bacoli, because that answers some unanswerable questions on Anthony Joshua for me currently, but I don't know if that's an advantageous fight for him. But I think Jermaine Franklin is the most interesting because it's a relevant fight in British pop culture because of of the perceived fight he had with Dillian White.
Gotcha. Wave, who do you think would be a better fight for Joshua at this stage?
I agree with Luke. I feel that Jermaine Franklin is probably the better fight based on the time. People are familiar with him. He just had that fight with Dillian White. I thought it was a draw as well. I don't think there was really a real winner in the fight for me. Jermaine Franklin style-wise, more combinations. It's just, let's talk Anthony. It's really about AJ. So let's talk AJ. AJ is coming off the 2 losses to Usyk, and he needed a confidence booster, And I actually believe that Demsey McKean is probably the more difficult fight. He's taller. He knows, he's good at range, but no one knows who he is. And everybody knows him as him being the ex-AJ sparring partner, But I think style-wise, he's probably the more difficult fight. And I think AJ boosts his confidence up, depending on whoever he's new, if he's going to be with Derek James now. You go on there and try out some new things. Jermaine Franklin is solid, not good defensively. And if AJ is looking to score a knockout, it would probably work out better with Jermaine Franklin, especially because Franklin performed good against Dillian White.
Got you. Base, is Franklin the front runner? Have you heard anything over there? What do you think is going to happen? And do you like Franklin better for Joshua than McKean?
I'm gonna take my flowers, my imaginary flowers, because while you guys may not have seen this, but there's evidence. November last year, the Monday after Dillian White versus Jermaine Franklin, I said that Jermaine Franklin is going to be AJ's next opponent. I gave all my reasons why. It looks
that's
like
not fair, Base. You work for Matchroom, Base.
Well, maybe I do.
was giving him his flowers. What's going on, guys? I was clapping for him. I'm giving you your flowers, bro.
That's an inside joke between him and I. He knows I'm busting his
No, it's all good. But yeah, no, I had a feeling he'd be the next opponent. Now, is he the better opponent for AJ, and is he the better opponent for the crowd? Right. So for the crowd, yes, because I know who Demsey McKean is. I've seen quite a few of his fights. I know what he's done, but again, no one in the UK has seen him fight. He was on the undercard of a Lawrence Okoli fight, which did absolutely shocking, basically. Outside of that, he was on, the Australia card, and a couple of, low level, the USA cards. So he doesn't have a profile like that. Yeah, 6'6", southpaw, obviously former sparring partner, so they kind of know each other. AJ probably thinks, well, I'm not going to be fighting a southpaw again anytime soon because he's not going to fight Usyk again, and none of the other contenders who are in number one mandatory spots are southpaws. So it makes more sense to fight Jermaine Franklin, who the public have just seen. A lot of people say that fight with Dillian White was close. I disagree. Like, I had it scored 7-4 and 1 even, so 116, 113. I thought it was quite clear, but he had moments. He overperformed to what people expected, because realistically at that point he was a guy that nobody knew. So he's just another American coming over to get washed. We haven't seen his pedigree, and he came in and performed well. And I think that's what they're trading off. And ultimately the narrative is Dillian couldn't finish his food, watch me do it instead. And that's the same thing that Anthony Yard did with Lyndon Arthur in the Dex Spellman fights. Spellman went, Arthur went points with Spellman, and Anthony Yard, like 2 months later, went in the ring and KO'd him in like 4 or 5 rounds or something. So it's the exact same narrative there. I did your work better than you. Now let's see what you've got to build up the fight in the summer, if it does happen. So yeah, that's pretty much the narrative there. So from a business perspective, that's the narrative you sell. This guy gave Dillian his hardest fight today, or gave him one of his hardest fights. How's Anthony Joshua going to do with him on the comeback trail after 2 back-to-back losses to the pound for pound great? And that's what they're going to market it as.
Now, Hearn's saying that he wants Joshua to fight 3 times this year. Do you think that is going to happen? Do you think that's possible? I don't see that happening.
Nah.
It's possible. I don't think it's going to happen. The only way that happens, literally, if this April the 1st fight happens and Joshua gets rid of Franklin within 3 rounds, then maybe he'll be happy to go back into another camp like 3 weeks after that for the end of July, and then possibly again in December, because he could do July and then December. That's not far-fetched. But if it doesn't end up being the 1st, or if he has it goes 10 rounds, 11 rounds, Joshua these days is not the type of guy that's going to, I'm ready to go straight back in the gym after a few days off. He's going to want to do some media obligations, and it's just unrealistic to think someone at his age now, being on the schedule he's been on for the last 4 or 5 years, is automatically just going to flip that mindset back to what he was doing 6 years ago. I don't really see it, but there is the possibility for him to do it if all the ducks align perfectly.
Beeb, Wave, Base. What heavyweight fights 3 times a year anymore?
Nobody.
Nobody.
Only the prospects.
It's hard. It's hard.
Prospect?
But I do believe that Joshua's gonna blast them out in like 3 to 5 rounds though, if they fight.
Yeah.
I don't think the Demsey McKean fight is a good fight for AJ. I just don't, and I think it's pointless.
Yeah, because McKean's
Southpaw,
a bigger
like
puncher. He's a bigger puncher too than Franklin.
McKean is it's not even if AJ wins, it's not gonna make him look good. Yeah.
He'll take damage in those fights. It's like the reason Bacoli will never fight him. It's the reason certain guys won't fight Joshua. You can't ruin the church's money.
Yeah. Well, we now live in a world of, we have these phrases, agreed to terms, reportedly set, sources say, and we got another one. We got another one this week. David Benavidez and Caleb Plant are reportedly set for March 25th. This is a fight we've been waiting for a long time. There's been a lot of talk back and forth here. Are we finally going to get this fight? And what is your opinion on this fight? Has your opinion changed at all? Because there's been some time that has been elapsed. Obviously, Caleb Plant's taken an L. He's been stopped. So has this changed your opinion on who you think is going to win and how this fight's going to play out? Lukey, we'll start with you, brother. What are your thoughts?
On me?
Yeah.
Okay, you switched it on me. Normally you go each panelist, so that's why I had to ask.
Yeah.
I mean, I think people really underestimate Caleb Plant because I think Caleb Plant is very delusional in a good way. Like, I think that everything he says he believes, and he's a really hard worker in the gym. I've been around him. I hate to always bring that stuff up. That sounds like such a dickhead thing to say, but seeing someone train and their mentality is special. Benavidez really has always felt like a generational talent, like a guy from another era that guys have been kind of avoiding. He's maybe not the most crafty fighter, but his power is different. And I get the feeling that people don't want to assess where he's at. These are the type of fights that made all of us love boxing. And these are the guys where it's the overachiever, the guy with a great will who keeps proving people wrong, fighting like the prodigal son, who is David Benavidez. People want Benavidez to fight Canelo. People have anointed him in that spot. If you look at his resume, he really hasn't earned that spot. But then if you look at people jumping up to fight him, people aren't jumping up to fight him. I really hope we get this fight because it answers a lot of questions about both fighters, because the problem is we see this at the welterweight division, which it should be just called the weight division, where people just wait. We're seeing it at the super middle weight division, which is the junior version of that, where people wait. They just wait for Canelo. Maybe if I wait, I can get a Canelo fight. And what's hurting is I'm losing interest in boxing because I can watch college football, I can watch all these other sports, and you see the best versus best competing. In super middleweight, we haven't really figured out where David Benavidez is at, and he's a grown man now. And we've been having these conversations 2, 3, 4 years. So this fight needs to happen to really explain who David Benavidez is and who Caleb Plant is in the trajectory of the super middleweight division.
Gotcha. Base, are we finally going to get this fight? And let me ask you this. If Plant were to pull this one off, and he pulled it off in impressive fashion, could he be beating the drums to get a Canelo rematch? Because this would be back-to-back 2 good victories for him. Could he resell himself to Canelo, in your opinion?
I mean, he could. Might be actually, it won't be that hard of a sell because ultimately people thought he was doing quite well up until he got knocked out. So then it's like, okay, came up to that level, wasn't quite at it that first time. I've now cracked the code. I'm ready to dethrone the master. So you could run that kind of narrative. In terms of, is the fight good? I mean, yes, it's a good fight. It's a fight that's 2.5 years too late. It should have happened when both of them were champions at 168 in a unification. Like, you would have got the more profile off of the fight then. At this point, I mean, I don't know exactly what Showtime numbers and everything is like over there, but it seems like they're losing subscribers by the month at the moment, and it's just not really a thriving platform there. I think, and they're getting swallowed up by Paramount Plus or something, or HBO Max or one of those channels. So it's just like it's almost like they're now on a sinking ship. So the chance where they would have had the most eyes on them was when there was a lot more people on the platform. Now the platform shrinking, it's taking forever to get the fight. It's probably now going to go on pay-per-view as well, which means that that's going to be even less of of an audience to view it. So nobody's face is really getting out there. So the only person who's going to have any reach is probably Caleb Plant anyway, because he had the Canelo fight already, and a lot of people paid to watch that. Outside of that, yeah, it's just a fight that's too late. It's one of those, I wouldn't even say it's necessarily Amir Khan and Kell Brook late, but it's just it doesn't have that level of intrigue anymore because they're not fighting for anything specific.
No belts.
Yeah, there's nothing then unless you're going to encounter the WBC interim title, which when they could have done a unification, like it just it's the fight is okay, but I mean I feel sorry for you having to pay for it when it's overcooked, less flavors.
Yeah. Wave, do you think this fight lost any of its luster? Are you still excited for it? Do you think it's still a great fight?
Yeah, it's still a great fight to me. I think Canelo moving up to 168 definitely disrupted a lot of things. Because honestly, this fight should have happened a couple of years ago. And I also believe that Saunders and Callum Smith should have fought at least a couple of years ago. They were all champions at 168. And once Canelo got up there, everybody just started to wait around and was just hoping they got their opportunity with Canelo. And Canelo beat everybody. I mean, he's still there. But, you know, he did what he had to do, and everybody's gone and moved on. Saunders, I don't know what Saunders is doing. I don't know if he's ever going to come back. Smith went up. He seems to improve because he should have been up there for a while now. He's too big.
Yeah, I think so.
Way more powerful up there. I mean, he's like one of the most violent punchers right there, up there at 175 now. And then you have Plant, who's made his return, and he's looked good. And then you got Benavidez, who he didn't get the Canelo opportunity. He burned that with losing that title. So I love this fight. And I think it's one of the few fights that I think it's actually better now that it didn't happen, because Plant got the knockout against Darrell. And I don't think any of us really expect. I think most of us expected Plant to win the fight. We wasn't expecting knockout of the year type knockout, you know? So I like the fight. It tells us a lot about mainly Benavidez, because we thought, you know, a lot of people think Canelo was avoiding this guy. Is he really that good? Now we'll be able to see, or he could get exposed. And when I say exposed, I don't mean losing a fight or anything. I mean like he could really get outboxed thoroughly, round by round, and look bad, you know, because he has not fought anyone on this level yet. Or he could dominate. I personally believed probably before the Canelo fight with Plant that Benavidez would stop Plant. You know, I didn't think that Plant, even though he was a better boxer, I just don't like the way he finishes fights. Like, I think he just slows down too much, and I thought Benavidez and his pressure was going to get to him. Now I'm still leaning towards Benavidez, but I'm not as confident in my pick this time around. So I love the fight, man, and yes, it will definitely be a pay-per-view for sure. They're going to make this a pay-per-view. I mean, they made everything else a pay-per-view. Ortiz and Luis Ortiz and what is this guy? What's the guy that dreads that fought last year?
Luis Ortiz and Charles Martin?
Yeah, if that was a pay-per-view, they're making everything a pay-per-view. This is a pay-per-view.
Luis Ortiz was on pay-per-view as much as Canelo.
He is.
He was.
He was.
Yeah. Oh, well,
Him and Andrew Ruiz were on pay-per-view too.
He was a pay-per-view star. Luis Ortiz.
When it comes to Showtime, I'm not even surprised. I'm surprised that Frank Martin was and Michelle Rivera wasn't a pay-per-view. Yeah. You know, so this is definitely going to be a pay-per-view, but I do like the fight. I do really like it. And it gives us who's the second best guy in the super middleweight division. To me, the winner of this fight will be the second best guy. You still got David Morrell still creeping up, though. One of those dudes.
Yeah, Dave Morrell's
have to fight him.
He's not the player.
I wouldn't want. That's a guy I would duck. I would not want to fight that dude.
Yeah,
that dude looks good.
There's not much reward there if you're taking on this dude, man.
Yeah, so we'll see. And I just want to add too, Berlanga is now with ESPN. He probably, I don't know if it was his choice, but going to the PBC right now, I don't know. It looks they got a nice stable at 168 over there.
He may get lost in the shuffle.
Any of those guys
lost in a shuffle wave if he goes over to PBC. They got too many fighters as it is, man.
Yeah,
there's a reason why those guys are only fighting once a year, man. They can't get dates. They can't get dates. The stable's too big, man. And they have too many fighters and not enough dates.
Yeah. They need another network.
They need another network, you know. But Fox is kind of shunning them a little bit. They're not giving them the dates. Right. Showtime, they're not giving them slots, so that's why these fights are all. People are like, why are these fights on pay-per-view? Why are these fights on pay? Because Showtime doesn't want to pay the rights fees. That's simple and plain. That's why.
I mean, it's not that. There's an answer though. Why not try Amazon? Why not make?
Yeah,
we don't know. We don't know if these
a digital platform.
Paramount, or that's my frustration with boxing is it always feels like let's try the thing that's already happened as opposed to let's forge our own path. DAZN we thought might be that, but DAZN's like, we're coming in, Netflix of boxing, give us money, we're going to change our fees whenever we feel like. These long-standing promoters like the PBC, I've always liked the PBC too, which is crazy because most of my peers don't like the PBC.
I used to.
I wish that they could get like a platform like Amazon or something, where these young fighters like Jesus Ramos Jr., T. Fulberton, they could get multiple dates within a year, because that's what my frustration is. Why am I not seeing Kenny Sims Jr. fighting on a PBC undercard if I want to see him after an Elvis Rodriguez fight? Why do I have to buy a ticket and fly out to see that?
Yeah.
So do you guys think, though, if Benavidez does win this fight, that Canelo has to fight him next, right? I mean, because Canelo is going to be fighting John Ryder. I said that was going to happen, and it looks pretty much done for, I think, I want to say May, right? And I just think that after that fight, I don't think he's ever going to get back in the ring with Bivol. So the most likely opponent, the best opponent has to be Benavidez. Am I wrong here?
Nah.
How can he not fight Benavidez next if Benavidez beats Plant? I just don't see how we can avoid it.
Well, it depends on when that fight finally happens. Like, if that fight happens May 25th, then yeah, they might be ready for September. But knowing those guys, when have they ever, taken the fight 3 months later, essentially?
Yeah.
So
Canelo's starting to show wear and tear. He's had some issues with that right knee. Now it's the wrist. He's been complaining that schedule kind of wore him down a little bit.
Bad tattoos too. That's the sign of falling off. When you get some bad tattoos, then
that means you're having some dark moments alone at night thinking about shit. And then you wake up the next morning, I'm getting a fucking tattoo.
No, but if you think about the schedule it was only became an issue when he went and done obviously the 4 fights in 12 months, or almost nearly 5 fights to go on the undisputed run. When he was just doing the 2 fights, it was a lot more manageable, because he has a long break after those 2 fights and then before he gets back in. So going back to that, he's used to that, whereas those guys maybe aren't as used to that right now. So if they may not accept that date, and him, he's going to stick to his date regardless. So
yeah. It's crazy because you hear of people compare the old days to now and say, oh, these guys used to fight way more, blah, 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 blah. But here's the thing people forget. Back in the day, Jake LaMotta used to fight a lot of non-title fights in between. He was fighting guys that were had double-digit losses. So in other words, those guys would take in-between fights, sort of like, Luca, this, Julio Cesar Chavez used to do.
Yeah,
same
the
thing.
King of that.
Yeah, instead of sparring, they would have virtual sparring sessions, but have people pay to watch them do it, right? So this was back then, right? But if you're fighting top level guys back to back, you can't fight 3-4 times a year. I mean, the better the opposition gets, the tougher it's going to be on your body. You can't just be fighting 3-4 times a year. And Muhammad Ali fought twice a year. Sugar Ray Leonard fought twice a year. It's not like everyone fought 4 or 5 times a year. When they started making money, then they started fighting less and they started fighting tougher guys. So this whole thing about, these guys should fight 3 or 4 times a year, I'm just happy if they fight twice. And as long as they're fighting, decent opponents, I'm happy. You can't expect the guy to fight 3 times, have 3 training camps. That's 24 weeks of training. I mean, the training camps, in itself alone, puts so much more damage on the body, just as much as the fights do. Probably more, the fighters will tell you. So it's just ridiculous. It's just ridiculous, the expectations. Oh, these guys should be fighting 3-4 times a year.
No, I think they should. I think they should. And the thing is,
I don't think they can, Base.
As you just said, right? You can fight tune-ups. You can fight. Give me.
Okay.
You can do all that. So you have 1 hard fight. You can have 2 nothing fights within the next sort of 3.5 months, and then go into a training camp for a much harder fight towards the end, because you're not going to be in a full camp for quote unquote your gimmies. That's just keeping everything loose and warm. If you stay in that, when they say when you go to the gym, it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. That's what they say. So if you're constantly just in the ring fighting people, regardless of what level, you're staying in shape. You're keeping everything well oiled to the point where you don't have to now do a 10 to 12 week camp to drop the weight that you put on through inactivity and not keeping your body moving. So no, I think they should be fighting. I have no issue with people fighting tune-ups or gimme fights or whatever, so long as that's not the only time they're fighting each year.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I always think back, when HBO was still around, Triple G, and Kovalev was at a high level. They was fighting 3-4 times a year easy.
And that's how you keep your name out there. Like without that, if you fight once or twice, people forget about you, or they just about remember who you are, your market.
Let me defend my non-power punching brethren as a non-hard hitting fighter myself. It's easier for guys who hit hard to fight 4 times a year at a high level.
He's gonna make a great point, and he froze up. Oh, there, are you back?
Okay, I'm back.
Okay.
Oh no, I'm gone.
He was making a good point there.
Oh, I'm back. I think I'm back.
All right.
Okay, so here's my great point. And the internet wanted to censor me. They wanted to cancel me, but I'm back. Is that here's what it is. If you don't hit hard, it's going to be harder to fight as often than a guy like Golovkin, who's steamrolling guys. He hits you one time, boom, down goes the guy. Even if he's a world-class guy, he hits harder. It's harder for Paulie Malignaggi to do 3 fights a year at a world-class level than it is Golovkin. And I think that's kind of like the unfair nature of the sport is we want to see these fighters, but not all fighters are created equal, and some fighters can fight more often based off of their physical gifts.
Yeah,
excellent point.
That's a great point. Well, guys like Tank is fighting once a year though. It's like, yo, my man.
Well, once again,
maybe twice a year. You know?
Me being me with my new adopted label of PBC hater, and I'll wear that label proudly because I've just washed my hands with the PBC. I'm sorry. He's a PBC fighter, so that's par the course if you're over there, right?
Yeah.
What are you going to do? And one last point on this topic. I remember when I interviewed Mickey Ward about 5 years ago, and I asked him, I said, do you have any regrets? If there was one regret that you could point out in your career, what would it be? And he said that he felt as though he shouldn't have taken so many tough fights back to back to back to back, that he should probably have taken some softer touches in between. So a lot of fighters, do take too many tough fights in a row, and they have to suffer for that as well. So Base, your point is very well taken there, and it's supported by one of the toughest guys out there, Mickey Ward, right?
You know who said that too is Jerry Belmontes, who a lot of people might not know, but Jerry Belmontes is like this really good amateur. He beat Errol Spence Jr. in the amateurs, and then like Adrian Clark is his manager. Adrian's one of the nicest people but Adrian was learning on the job, and he'll even admit I put him in some tough fights that he probably shouldn't have been doing.
Yeah. And
it probably limited where Jerry went and why most fight fans don't know who Jerry Belmontes is, because he was capable of being, there's my guy right there.
My man.
What's up, y'all?
Right on cue.
What's up, Alex?
What's going on? Good to see y'all.
Get them mad
tonight. We got heavy hitters tonight.
No, get them mad. We want controversy. Say something. Say something crazy.
I'll rev them up.
No. We got to get to 100 likes. You guys are trash in the chat. If we don't get this to 100 likes and leave comments, make fun of my nose. It got broken. Leave a bunch of comments. We need comments and likes.
Yeah. Calix, March 25th, your favorite fighter, Caleb Plant, is rumored to be taking on David Benavidez. Is this going to happen? And I asked Wade this question. He made a good point. But is this fight as good as it once was? Because there's no belts on the line. Caleb Plant suffered an L. He's been knocked out. But in fairness, I thought he did phenomenal in that Canelo fight. I thought he did much better than I anticipated. I actually had the fight even up to the point of the stoppage. A lot of people disagree. Some people had it 6-4, whatever the case may be. He won rounds in that fight. So are we getting too excited here? Because this is a Cappinger headline. So we don't know if this is 100% true or not. Do you think this fight is going to happen, number one? And has your opinion changed on this fight? Has it lost any of its luster, in your opinion?
No. Surprisingly, no, it hasn't. I'm as interested in it as I was 2-3 years ago. And generally speaking, in boxing, we get the fights that aren't in demand. And then when they're in demand, we don't get them. But in this case, I think this fight is still in demand. I still think it's number 2 in the weight class versus number 3 in the weight class. I, like you, Caleb Plant showed me things in the Canelo fight, and I felt like it was disingenuous, a lot of stuff going into that Canelo fight, and it was due to a lot of the narratives trying to pull Canelo down. I thought that was a good win for Canelo, as did the Billy Joe Saunders fight, because the narrative when Canelo was at 160 is if Canelo moves up to 168 against a bigger mover like Billy Joe Saunders, he would lose. And then all of a sudden the narrative changed before and after that fight. Same thing with Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant is very good with the left hand. And you can argue he's a one-handed fighter, but the up jab, he's got a lot of things. His feet are great. He's got a lot of things that can present some problems to David Benavidez. And this is David Benavidez's biggest test up to this point. And people are going to tell you what they think about a fighter by their expectations of him, right? And leading up to the Canelo fight, people were trashing Caleb Plant leading up to that fight and saying, oh, it's just another run-of-the-mill. It's really, as far as undisputed, it's not a big fight. It's one of the weaker undisputed. But now they're saying Benavidez, this is a tough fight for Benavidez, 2-1 favorite, close to even odds. And this will be Benavidez's biggest win on his career, and it'll be a great win. So they'll tell you the expectations, what they think about a fighter by the expectations. But as far as this fight, I like it. I don't like that it's on pay-per-view. I've been vocal about that, and I'm going to stop being so vocal about the pay-per-view thing because it just seems like people don't care. I'm just punching the air at this point. I don't like the fact that we're likely going to get 7 pay-per-views in a 9 to 10 week period. That's frustrating, but I'm at the point where I'm at the realization where everybody has a hacked fire stick at this point, so nobody really cares that you're complaining about the pay-per-views. It's going up against March Madness in Vegas. It's going up against Taylor Swift in Vegas. In my opinion, the most overrated artist/singer in the modern era, by the way. But look, this is a great matchup. I like it, 2 versus 3. And it gets Benavidez on the right track. It gets these guys fighting each other over on PBC Island at 168 and around it. And it's good. It's a good fight for boxing.
Yeah, I believe that. I've been criticized a lot lately for being a negative Nelly on the sport, right?
Me too.
A lot of people taking shots. And you know what? I welcome it. It is what it is. But I'm a truth teller. And I'm going to say something negative again. I'm going to be critical again. Jose Ramirez had that potential fight with Jose Zepeda. Could have been for the vacant title. He decided to get married. Calix, you're a married man. I already asked you this question, and I respect your opinion. Would your wife have gotten mad at you if you postponed the wedding a couple months down the road, right?
No.
So I'm gonna die alone. I'm 53. I have no wife, no kids. I'm not a connoisseur on this. I got to ask the married man on the panel.
But Beeb, it's a false equivalence anyway, because these dudes get 44 weeks of PTO now. They're working 8 weeks, and when we're in a unofficial recession, it's hard to feel sorry for. And I understand they're fighters and they pour out the blood, but it's hard to feel sorry for dudes making high 6 figures or 7 figures for 8 weeks of work when dudes are out here struggling. We're paying like $1 per egg. It's like $87 for a pound of meat, and they expect us to feel sorry for it, pull out the small violin. So what I like is on the channel, we preach this all the time. It's like we're fans of the fighters' actions, no matter who they are, no matter where they come from, nationality, skin color, any of it. So when a Stephen Fulton Jr. says, I want this fight, I want it when it's supposed to happen and where it's supposed to happen. That's what we're talking about there, right there. It's fighters. Caleb Plant versus Benavidez. They both came out and said, enough, give us the fight. It's fighters taking control of their career. When a Stephen Fulton Jr. says, look, this is my division. I don't want to hear anything about this dude coming up. This is my division. Give me the fight, and I'll go over there to Japan and fight him. That's what I respect. And when a dude says, I'm not going to fight for the vacant belt because I got to get married and have a honeymoon, when he's already had 6 months off, and then he comes out and whines about getting 35% in a purse split, which shouldn't go to a purse split anyway, but getting 35% when he knew when he didn't take the vacant shot that he was going to be on the 35% end of it to Regis Prograis. So it's frustrating, man. So when you ask me about Jose Ramirez getting married, not getting married, I like fighters who behave like fighters. And Ramirez, up to this point, up till last year, he was one of those guys we liked. But this right here, no.
So now that we got that off your chest, he's fighting a guy, Richard Commey, who drew with the guy that he beat already pretty convincingly, right? In Pedraza.
Mm-hmm.
So my question is, why? He had the Prograis fight where he had another opportunity to fight for a title. He turned that down. So he had 2 title opportunities that he kind of just said the hell with. And now he's fighting, with all due respect, Richard Commey. Why?
Anybody got anything? Because I got nothing.
I'll say it.
Let me cape for my guy.
Hold on. Let me say
Jose's done a lot for me. Can I put on the Superman cape?
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Wave.
No. I'm being rude. Go away.
No. Go ahead. Go.
I get animated, bro. Ask my girlfriend, bro. She'll tell you I get overstimulated and then I start doing crazy stuff, but not in a bad way. So no one call the cops on me. It's a good thing. Look, bro. I think it's not a good fight. We all can say that, but I think this is an ESPN approvable fight, and I think that's the reason we're getting it. Like Dimitri Salita said to me recently, once again, I hate the name dropping stuff, is we're living in a world of exclusivity instead of inclusivity. So what is the best ESPN main event if Regis isn't there? Who is someone that's been a main eventer? And Commey's filled that bill. I wrote down a list of names of guys I'd rather see. Sean Urgashev, who's a Salita fighter. I think that's an interesting fight. Brandon Lee's an interesting fight. But we don't live in a world of interesting fights. We live in a world of feasible fights with ESPN, who are guys that can carry an ESPN card. And I think that's all this is. This is a college football game on Tuesday night to ESPN.
Okay. Wait, before I go to you, I want to give D-Style Boxing a shout out. He's taking shots at me as usual, calls me Negative Nelly. D-Style Boxing, shout out to him. He's on administrative leave for a couple weeks. He'll be back in a couple weeks. So always nice to have him chime in here. Go ahead, Wave. You wanted to say something. I think you had a good point.
Yeah. When you were talking about, all of this, the way he's been moving lately, I think it all has to do with maybe just a little bit of lack of confidence after losing to Josh Taylor the way he did. I mean, it was his first loss. He got stopped, was going to come back and fight a tough fight against Jose Cepeda, a guy that it was a very disputed win. It was a very good fight. I remember watching that fight. And then when he had this title opportunity to fight Regis Prograis, I mean, let's be real. He came back and beat Pedraza, Does he really want to fight Regis Prograis right now?
Nah, nobody does, man.
Let's be real.
I'm sorry, G Funky. Nobody wants to fight Regis Prograis right now, G Funky. I'm sorry. I'm name dropping right now. I'm doing it. Go ahead.
It is what it is. I mean, listen, Ramirez is a good fighter, but he needs to build that confidence back up. And you could tell when they went live that day and they were talking, I mean, for him to say, "Oh, it's not going to be Richard Commey," and it turned around and ended up being Richard Commey. Like you guys said, it's a top rank, it's an ESPN approved fight because we're familiar with Commey, but it's a confidence booster. It's a fight that he could win. Like to get back in the mix of things. He doesn't want. I mean, look at the common opponents. Prograis's been in there with Taylor. We saw that fight, very close fight. Prograis's been in there with Cepeda recently. We saw how that ended. I mean, Ramirez doesn't want to go in the ring with that guy. I mean, even Cepeda was going to be tough, but Regis Prograis now, you go from Pedraza to Prograis right now? Nah, he's not going to do that. So I don't even think I don't even want that fight for Ramirez right now. Not after coming off of a wedding and going right into Regis Prograis. Nah, it's not gonna happen.
See, I threw out a similar opinion on my channel that I think Ramirez is in a spot where he's probably looking for a couple big paydays on the way out. That's what it seems like. He seems like that guy that he got to the mountaintop, Josh Taylor, and tested it out, and he just couldn't get to that tippy top. And now he's not interested in that track anymore. Now he's looking for a couple big paydays on the way out. Here's where I have an issue, though, is, and where we'll likely go separate ways, is as a boxing fan, I don't approach things as, I don't see that as a good fight for him at this point or anything like that. I approach it as, give me the best fight or just get out of the way. And what I'd like to see is guys like Jose Ramirez, if they don't want to fight for legit titles, drop them out the rankings and say, look, just go over there. You don't want to fight for titles. You're not interested. Get out of the way. And give me Regis Prograis versus the next in line. But what I don't want to hear is people say Jose Ramirez is still a top-level fighter if he's not interested in fighting the best guy that he was mandated to fight. And he stepped out of the way for the bacon belt, knowing that this guy was going to be in the way. And he said at the time, I'm still going to fight that guy. I'm going to get married. I'm still going to fight that guy. And then it's no, that doesn't work. They're talking about they sent them a contract. We know they didn't send them a contract. We don't want to work with Pro Bellum. A top-ranked fighter just worked with Pro Bellum. And Rick Marizian's fighter is trying to work with a Pro Bellum fighter down in Dallas right now. So I don't want to hear all that back and forth. It's just like, if you're a fighter, give me the fight. You've had 2 years to recover from Josh Taylor. Like if it hasn't happened yet, it's not going to happen. So he's got to step out of the way if he's not interested in fighting the top fighters. And Teofimo Lopez is going to be next. Teofimo Lopez is going to come up with some cockamamie scheme to not fight Regis Prograis. I already know it.
Nobody wants to fight.
Did you guys
Nobody
see
wants to fight that guy.
That live that they had when they went back and forth?
Yeah.
Calix, you sound, what you're saying is exactly how I felt when I was watching it.
Mm-hmm.
He felt like a guy when he was talking money, retirement, what I did. He sounded exactly like that. Like he sounds like he's pick up a few fights, ready to go on his way out.
And you know what? Like I have some empathy for a guy who has taken his shot and now he feels entitled to that on the back end, and that's fine. He's got a name. But the issue I have is you have a growing number of fighters early on in their career who feel that way, who currency over legacy. And we've talked about how currency over legacy gets you less of both over time. And I see that playing out in boxing. It's like, it's one thing, Jose Ramirez, we can sort of understand that, right? It's like, I have a name now. I took my shot. But you have guys 5, 6, 7 years in who have never fought a tough guy yet, and they want big paydays, and they think they're above the belts. And that's the frustrating part as a boxing fan, is this is not resembling a sport in a lot of cases. But the good news is this spring schedule is starting to heat up. That's the good news.
We'll see. Let's cross our fingers. Base, let me ask you a question, man. Jose Ramirez and Richard Commey. They ain't going to be fighting in the O2 Arena anytime soon over in the UK, correct?
That's correct, I'd say.
So what do you think of this fight, man?
I mean, I'll watch it. It's going to be free for us. I'm not going to stay up and watch it. You know, I'll catch it in the morning. But I'll watch it. It's like I said, it's one of those afterthought fights within the division. But sometimes you need those. Not every fight's got to be for something. As long as they're not charging you for the privilege of it, then all right, cool. On to the next.
You don't think it's a little bit odd that he had 2 potential title fight opponents in front of him, passed on both of them? And I thought the Zepeda fight was very winnable, right, Cal? That was a very winnable fight for him, Calix.
But
he
they
wanted
share a
already.
manager. I think that's the issue.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it was odd because I don't think he's in it for belts anymore. He's in it for either the most money or he's in it for the most money for the least resistance. Richard Commey at that point gives him that. That's then the end of his top rank contract. If he can get a better deal somewhere else and maybe just, you know, sell his name and his image to the highest bidder to get beat by an up and coming prospect that needs a boost, then I think that's the next thing for him. So yeah, that's his trajectory. He's not in it for belts anymore. So I don't really see, because remember, the rumor was he was supposed to go and fight Conor Benn at 147 before the Chris Eubank Jr. fight happened. So clearly that's not someone that's still looking for belts at 140. Here's what it is.
Do you think marriage changed him a little bit or no? I mean, I'm not a married man. I mean, I've been on some dates here and there, but I don't know how it feels to be married.
Hey,
So
can we speak on my man Rick Marigian on how well he's maneuvered Jose Ramirez's career though?
He's unified titles. I mean, we can't take that away from him.
And like, I feel like people always kind of like laugh at Jose, but Jose's done a lot, and Calix, like he always says something profound in the sense that Ramirez has done a lot, and now he wants his back end money. And that's basically like we're seeing it as hardcore fight fans. We know what it is. Like it's not rocket science.
Yeah, so like we call out Jose Ramirez right now, and I don't want to sound like I'm a Jose Ramirez detractor because I'm not. It's just I don't like the decisions recently, but it's like Kobe, right? Kobe got short end of the stick early on in his career as far as money. Michael Jordan, same thing, but they got their back end money. Like if the Lakers were like the Lakers could have moved on past Kobe. It would have actually been a smarter move. He was getting injury prone past the last 3 years, and then he's breaking down, but they're giving him the money, the market value money throughout his whole career, right? So that's what that is. In Ramirez, same thing. He's looking for his market value throughout his whole career. He wants his back end money. That's what this is. But as a fight fan, I'm just not interested in any of that. Like I'm not interested in the pay-per-view numbers, 61,000 buys, 200,000 buys, a gazillion buys. We'll never know the real numbers anyway. We just want to talk fights, right? So if a fighter isn't about that life anymore and the fight's not entertaining, it just doesn't move the needle for me.
Well, you know what? Let's give him the benefit of the doubt. We'll see what he does after this fight, because if the next opponent, because this is 2 opponents in a row that they were okay, but no one
marriage changed them.
Pedraza is a good opponent. Yeah, but Pedraza is a good opponent.
I said 2 good opponents. Okay, but nothing that.
But I mean, like Pedraza is like a fringe Hall of Famer. He's not going to get in the Hall of Fame, but he's going to get on a ballot. Right. Pedraza's going to be like a 2-division world champion and an Olympian. Like, I mean, this is a guy who we laugh at, but like he's going to get on a Hall of Fame ballot at some point.
Lukey, I'm going to send you over an offer letter tomorrow. We're gonna hire you as the PR director for Beeb Industries because you're.
Can we start at 100,000 though? Can we start at 100,000? Because I don't.
That's baseline. That was baseline.
Pedraza was a good opponent at the time. Like Pedraza when he fought Tank, Pedraza that was a good win. But Pedraza at 140 at that point, it was a good named opponent, well past it. And the same thing here. Commey doesn't belong at 140. So it's just stay busy. But the good news is I talked to a bunch of dudes going to the fight from California. They just want a good fight. They just want to fight out there, and they're going to show out for him.
Hey, but can I say this? If you're going to the fight, go see my man Charlie Sheehy, lightweight, stud, awesome. Like you got to go see him. And that's where it begins at and ends at. See Charlie Sheehy.
Gotcha. All right, this was some stunning news this week as well. Francis Ngannou leaves the UFC, and he was on Ariel Helwani's podcast, and he said that his next move that he makes, he wants to box. The next fight he's in, he wants to box. I heard some names thrown around there. Derek Chisore's name's been thrown around. I think Dillian White, these would be a good fight for him. They have a history together, right? Start with you, Base. We'll go right back to you. What do you think of this move from Francis Ngannou? And do you think he's going to get a decent fight next? Do you think he'd get a pretty good name opponent for himself?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, look, what's boxing if it isn't about, number one, securing the biggest bag you can, and also fighting or having the most high profile on your fight for perceivably the least resistance, which is what we were just talking about with Jose Ramirez, right? So Francis Ngannou, very dangerous puncher, like probably one of the strongest, hardest punchers in the world, but fighting in gloves that he's not used to fighting in. No, yes, he's got, I guess, some boxing ability-ish, but he's going to be novice level compared to anyone top 10, top 15. The guys at the top of the division have seen people much better than him and not really going to be worried. And we're also because of the way that they fight in the UFC, you also know that his gas tank isn't going to be up to scratch for boxing, because it's built for 5-minute rounds of some punches, some kicks, but a lot of posturing, groundwork, and grappling. Whereas this, you're constantly having to throw punches for, you know, every second of 3 minutes of each round. Or, you know, having to move and thinking about all of that. Your stance is going to be a lot different. So there's all these things that is just going to hamper him in terms of the elite guys. So someone like Dillian Whyte will take that in a heartbeat. Chisora's already called him out. You know, Chisora's crazy enough to do it in the boxing ring. Now, that probably would be his most possibility for winning, only because, again, Chisora's, you know, he's getting up there. The punch resistance is one thing. His gas tank isn't the greatest at the moment, and he could still sell that fight. But in terms of a Dillian Whyte, I mean, that one works. They did that virtual press conference, what was it, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, during the pandemic. He's, you know, he has that former, you know, MMA background as well, so you can use that as a bit of the narrative, both crossing over and whatever, you know, one's introducing the other to the pro game. The AJs, Tyson Fury's, you know, sized him up a couple times, asked him about his dick, and like, so he clearly wants to fight.
Whoa!
I mean, he said it, not me. He literally said it on camera to everyone.
I know he did. I know.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? So
he said, "How's your Wally?" He called it a Wally.
Yeah. So I mean, all of that. I mean, we know that there are options, and everyone, even AJ, they will all take that fight, because to them it's easily winnable. Yes, he's a very dangerous puncher, but he's limited, and it's gonna bring across the MMA audience as well as the boxing audience. You do that on pay-per-view quite easily, it will make money.
And Base, you know what's funny? When Ariel asked him, who would you want to fight? He mentioned all UK fighters. He mentioned Fury. He mentioned Joshua. And then he was asked, what about Wilder? And then he was kind of like, well, you know, Wilder's got different promotional issues or whatever. So he himself believes that the move would be to go to the UK. I think he would be probably better received over there from a boxing standpoint, in my opinion, anyways.
100%. The market's more buoyant over here. The networks are more behind it. They'll put money behind it, and then back of that, you can still sell the rights to a US broadcaster, and people probably who does the UFC over there. What channel?
ESPN.
Okay, yeah. So ESPN might even pick it up on that side, because he's a recognizable name for their network, and they can just, you know, sort of have the rights over in the US. So it will make money all the way around, but he'll get the most money for it in the UK.
Yeah. Lukey, do you like this move for Ngannou, transitioning into boxing?
I mean, I love it. If I was part of his team, we'd make a lot of money, because this is what boxing is. It's A side versus B side. An untalented UFC fighter who's famous against a bunch of really talented boxers. Like, this is what heavyweight boxers want to fight. This is the guys they want. Like, a really famous guy who people think is really good at boxing, who's good at other things, fighting a world-class fighter like Usyk or Fury or Joshua or Wilder. In no world is he on the same level as them, but some people will do faith-based arguments to convince themselves he is.
Like Brendan Schaub?
Yeah.
Brendan Schaub, he's trying to tell everyone that McGregor was going to beat Mayweather. That was hilarious. Calix, if this is on, well, this won't be on pay-per-view. No, they would be on pay-per-view. But
what fights aren't on pay-per-view?
That's a good question. Calix, if this fight was on pay-per-view between him and Chisora, would you buy it?
No. I got to be honest. Like, for me, I have to plead ignorance because I don't know anything about the UFC. So I've never seen Ngannou fight. But what I would say is he's another guy looking for back-end money, right? He's going to get much better money in the boxing ring. He's looking for 1, possibly 2 huge paydays, because you have an ignorant audience coming over who would think that an MMA fighter can beat a boxer out the gate, much like Mayweather versus Conor proved that. Look at how many people bought that. And look at, like, Floyd walked into the ring in like a burglar outfit. He's like, I can't believe people are buying this. Even he was, I think, blown away by it. So there's going to be a market for this. There's going to be a big market for this. So if I'm his manager, I'm pushing him into it. Yeah, why not? So, and if I'm a boxer, especially, I want to be the guy to fight this guy because you're going to make big money to fight a guy in his first boxing match that I know of anyway. So I would advise him to stay away from Deontay Wilder because Deontay Wilder will dribble his head into the 50th row. So stay over in the UK and fight those guys. But I can't envision an MMA guy coming over and beating a top 100 guy in a weight class. I can't. I take whoever, like somebody in the chat can pull up number 98, just randomly, number 98 in box rec rankings as far as heavyweights. I don't think Ngannou beats that guy. I got
the fight. Greg Hardy versus Ngannou. He just came off a big win over Hasim Rahman.
Boxing has one win over MMA. Oh, actually, two wins over MMA. Two.
Ray Mercer.
We got Ray Mercer and Tim Sylvia, and we got Holly Holm over Ronda Rousey.
And Floyd Mayweather over Conor McGregor.
Well, what I'm saying is, like, when boxers went over to MMA to fight, and they actually won.
They need to keep picking on Chavez Jr. because I don't see him getting any other wins. But pick out 98 in box rec heavyweight. I don't think he beats that guy. I don't.
I'm going to do research right now. I'm going to find that name.
Ray Mercer went over to the UFC and beat Tim Sylvia. Not UFC. He went over to MMA and beat Tim Sylvia, the former UFC heavyweight champ of the world. He one-hitted quitter him, baby. Holly Holm did the same thing. She took off the gloves and put on the 4 ounces and knocked out Ronda Rousey with the big kick.
Now, Ngannou he'll do well against lesser opponents. He will. Like anyone outside of the top 30, he'll probably ice.
Does he have a boxing background? I don't know. I really don't know.
It's not. He kind of wanted to go into boxing initially, but there was no pathway for him where he was from. And like just the MMA stuff just sort of took over. So he has a little bit of box. He's got boxing experience. Like his primary game in MMA is striking. So he's got that boxing background. He's always loved boxing. He just hasn't trained it because he's had to obviously train MMA. But he's got hands and he's got a great punch as well. So and he knows how to land it.
So Lukey, Ngannou versus Derek Chisora. Oh, he's not there. So Ngannou versus he's back. Ngannou versus Derek Chisora, Lukey. Does Ngannou have a shot against Derek Chisora at this stage or no?
Yeah, I mean, look, I did research for Calix because I'm a quote unquote journalist, right? The number 99th heavyweight, because I can't pronounce the number 98th guy. That's Eric Molina. Eric Molina versus Francis Ngannou.
I'll take
Maybe
Eric
that's
Molina.
a fight. Maybe that's a fight. You know, I still think I take Eric Molina in that one.
I think I take Ngannou. I'm taking Ngannou, man.
You're taking Ngannou in that one over a battle.
I like Ngannou in that one, man.
It's his first boxing match, though. Like to me, that's kind of disrespectful to boxing that a dude can come over from the octagon and beat a top 100 guy in the weight class.
Eric Molina, he'll find a place to lay down within the first round. He'll just do
nostalgia.
it.
That's
okay. Let me put it like this: Francis Ngannou versus Richard Torres Jr. Who wins?
Torres Jr. 100. But that's different. I mean,
what about Derek Chisora though, Lukey? This version of Derek Chisora.
I mean, but like I've gone on record and said I don't think Derek Chisora should still be fighting.
Okay.
Like, I think he's taken too much damage and people love his fighting style and they're enabling him to keep going. And I think it's getting kind of scary. I mean, I think Ngannou probably wins that because I think Chisora is a damaged fighter.
Because that's what I think the fight's going to be. That's who I think that he's going to fight.
Ooh, I mean, I hate that so much.
You know, what is it going to be? So back to the negativity. Ivan Redkach withdraws from the Adrian Broner fight.
I didn't even give my.
I'm so sorry, Wave. Jesus Christ, Wave. I apologize.
I'm like, I want to give my.
Luke has me all fucked up over here. Luke's got me all fucked up over here. I'm so sorry, Wave.
I'll take a hiatus like that again.
My sincerest apologies, Wave. Go ahead, I'm so sorry.
All right.
Jesus
I just
Christ.
want to say, like,
I hope Wave comes
I
back
think
next time I ask
if
him.
Ngannou's gonna do this boxing thing, he might as well go all the way because if he's gonna keep like, I don't think if he fights a lower opponent like Eric, like I was thinking Carlos Negron, that guy, you know, like a guy. I thought of Eric Molina too. I thought somebody like that. If he's gonna go and do that, and let's just say he happens to lose the fight, what is it gonna be for? Like, it's gonna just look bad. He's done. No one's gonna want to see him fight any of these other guys. So if you're gonna do the boxing thing, you're looking to get paid the money that the UFC did not give you. So you got to go all the way. So we're talking Derek Chisora. We're talking Dillian White. I know Deontay Wilder would probably knock him out. But if there's an opportunity to get that fight, get it. If there's an opportunity to get the AJ fight,
AJ,
at least you'll get paid. You fight a top 20, top 30, top 40, or even above that guy and end up losing, it's over. No one's going to want to see you fight Joshua or all these guys. It's over, you know? And I think he's going to go into, he's a big guy. I mean, I do watch his fights over there in UFC. He's going to have conditioning issues. That's going to be his major problem.
Yeah.
At least he has a puncher's chance in all of these fights. But if he goes in there and ends up to get outboxed by, I don't know, any random guy, it's not going to be worth it. Plus, he won't get paid as much. I mean, he is the UFC king. He has to fight one of the top guys in the division with a name. And that's why I say Derek Chisora is a good one, but anything below that wouldn't be worth it.
So Wave,
how old is Ngannou? How old is he?
36, I think.
Yeah, he's not young.
So Wave, Derek Chisora in the O2 Arena.
Around 36.
Derek Chisora
in the O2 Arena.
O2 Arena, and Ngannou gets 10 million for that fight. Is that worth it?
I think that's probably way more than he's ever gotten paid. He might take it. I'm not going to say and tell you what's worth it, but 10 million, it might be good for him.
Say he hired you as a manager. Say he hired you as a manager, Wave. Say you jumped on board with the team. Would you tell him to take that fight, 10 million to fight Chisora in the O2 Arena?
Yeah,
that's a good fight.
You know what? Boxing Wave got me on board with this. Is if I was the manager, I would go broke or go home, because you could mess around and lose to a Molina. So why not just go for AJ first fight out the gate? Do it at Wembley. And the issue, as everybody says, and we saw with McGregor versus Mayweather, is once 5th, 6th round comes around, like, they're not conditioned to do that. It's a different sport. So they're going to hit the wall. So he's going to have to go for broke early, and it's going to be fun to watch at least. So I would go for broke and just try to get a fight with AJ. Yeah.
I think Hearn could put that fight together. Now, Base, is Chisora like a free agent, or like is he on bad terms with Hearn? Because I know he was with he was on BT Sport last. Would he, can he still work with Hearn, or are they on bad terms? Because I know he was talking trash about the zone.
Yeah, but Chisora does what he does. He's never been signed to any of them. He went where the money was, and the money was always with Matchroom for him. In his last fight, the money ended up being with BT. He had a lot worse of a relationship with Frank Warren, but because he's good friends with Tyson Fury, Fury got him that payday, and so he took it. Outside of that, no, he'll work with whoever gives him money. So if Eddie said, I think he did an interview earlier on today with Charlie Parsons for Boxing Social. I think he said something along the lines of, I don't really see me working with Chisora again, unless it was maybe something like the Ngannou fight, if that was to happen.
Oh, he said that.
I heard him say something like that. I think it was on that interview. So yeah, he's definitely up to work with him again, just not in a serious boxing sense. Like, he doesn't see the value in that, but he's crossover type. So yeah, he'll work with him all day long. And like I said, Chisora doesn't care what his relationship's like with people. Whoever's got the money, that's where he's going.
So Wave, let me go back to you, because I think you hit on something. Now, did you say that you don't think it would be wise for him to like dip in and out from boxing to MMA, or did you say that he should probably stay in boxing for a couple fights just to kind of get a rhythm going, or do you think it's okay for him to bounce in and out MMA boxing?
If he's able to go to a different organization MMA wise, and they're able to pay him a lot more than the UFC, then I think he should stick with that. But
Okay.
if he is gonna go and do boxing, just do it at the very highest level, like in order. Like if you can't get AJ, then or Wilder, then get Chisora or White. I can't see him fighting anybody else though outside of those guys. You know,
So-
that's the thing. Chisora is at the bottom of it's just because he's a name and he can sell out arenas.
Yes. So basically, do the one-off and make the money, and then just go back to MMA. In other words, and just call it a day.
Yeah, I mean, MMA, he should stick with it because he was UFC's best. And if he can go into another organization, and he's a free agent now, if he can go somewhere else, and they can pay, a lot of money to this guy, which a lot of UFC fighters have done. A lot of UFC guys that with a name, they leave the UFC, even if they're past their prime, and they get paid big elsewhere. I mean, it's kind of like how BLK is doing right now with boxing.
Yeah.
So go that route. Or, if you can get a big fight with it, AJ or Wilder, because I thought about Wilder since Malik Scott said there's a mystery opponent out there. So maybe it could be Francis Ngannou. I mean, I don't know.
Wow.
Maybe they'll do an expedition.
Wow.
Can I say the elephant in the room? The guy just needs to take as big of money fights as possible.
Yeah.
And whoever the name next to it is interchangeable. It's just like, what is the most money? Yes. Have you guys ever played a video game when you were a kid and you set up the trade menu and it says like, I got Al Horford and a couple of guys, and you want to try to get Kobe Bryant. When you see a good superstar player, you just say yes. Francis Ngannou needs to just say yes to whatever the most money is. Right.
So don't necessarily.
At this point, you already proved that you're already the best guy.
He's a legend.
Yeah, but he was getting like $1 million, like under $1 million purses over there in the UFC, which is crazy.
Yeah. And then Dana White saying, "Oh, we were going to give him the highest paid of any heavyweight in the of all time UFC." But who knows what that number is?
It was $2 million a fight.
Was it $3 million a fight?
Oh, two.
I did some research on this, B, because you sent me this topic, and I'm a well-researched guy, even though I drink. And Brock Lesnar left the UFC in 2012, right? Or something around there, right? So Brock Lesnar was the money man. How much has the marketplace changed from 2012, 2013, 2014 to 2023? So what does that number even mean?
Is he factoring in inflation?
Inflation or new comparable contracts and all of that? What does that number mean?
Yeah. All right. Well, interesting enough. Sorry about that, Wave. Lukey had me screwed up there, man. He had me off track there.
No, that's all good.
I get in the zone, bro. I'm very passionate.
You made my brain fry a little bit. Smoke coming out of my ears after that conversation. All right. So once again, this is another head scratcher. So Ivan Redkach withdraws from the Adrian Broner fight. Hank Lundy steps in, and this is going to be for February 25th. Redkach was saying on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken, he said that he was done with boxing, but he didn't really go into why. And then I read another tweet, I think it was today or the day before, that he was complaining about how Joe DeGuardia didn't even go to him and tell him the fight was off. He went to the press first. So I don't know if anyone knows what went on here behind the scenes, but an even bigger question I have is Adrian Broner versus Hank Lundy on pay-per-view.
I'm actually in.
Who in the hell? Okay, so one person is going to buy this.
I'm in.
Who in the hell is going to buy this pay-per-view? Lukey, go ahead, man. Like, what do you know anything about this Redkach situation? And
I mean,
what's going on?
I don't know anything about it, but I'm sure I understand it just from basic concept of business, which is boxer thinks he's out of a contract after he signed contract, thinks he can get a release from a contract, gets a fight, or the promoter gets the fight. Then there's a dispute between promoter and said fighter. Promoter probably wants a couple of their fighters on the card. The other people don't want that. And then all of a sudden there's a big issue. I mean, it seems like there's a miscommunication with Star Boxing because Cletus Selden just recently got removed from his fight against Maddie. Now Keith Hunter is filling in for him. So it just seems like there's just a communication issue. The reason why I'm excited about this fight is I think this is really a 50-50 fight for where Broner's at right now. As crazy as that sounds. Hank Lundy versus Broner, I think, is a highly competitive fight. And I think people don't understand how competitive this fight is. And that's why I'm actually excited about it.
Wow. Wave, are you gonna buy this pay-per-view?
I don't know yet. If I go live, I'll probably
Are you intrigued by this at all, Wave? Did Lukey sell you this fight? Did he sell you this fight?
I like AB, but so I do agree with Luke as far as it being a competitive fight. I wouldn't call it 50-50 because I've been watching Hank and he just.
What are the odds you'd set it at, Wave?
I'm thinking it's more like a 60-40 type of thing.
Wow, Wave.
That's close. That's close.
You guys are talking me into this fight, man. I don't know.
It's only because Broner looked really bad in that Santiago fight to me. I mean,
he did.
He didn't. Him just taking these long breaks and all the stuff that's going on in his personal life and the mental health issues, being suicidal, being broke. I don't think Broner really has it anymore. I think it's kind of out of desperation. I don't think he really wants to fight anymore. So that makes this fight a little bit more even, in my opinion. I don't know. I tweeted this the other day. 10 plus years ago, this is a fight that I really wanted at one point because Hank was had one of the quickest hands in the sport, in my opinion. I was watching him back then, and Adrian Broner was this is before he moved up to 147. They were both at 135, and this is a fight that I really wanted to see once upon a time. But Hank, if you look at the Cepeda fight, which he actually did well in, something about his legs, he just looks off. He looks very he just doesn't look good, man. Fight. Yeah. He did well in the fight because Cepeda just looked bad in that fight.
But the way his legs moved.
But Hank Lundy's legs just look off, and he might be one of those fights where because Broner don't let his hands go like that, it might be competitive based on that. But Broner will give you a strong 3 or 4 rounds, and that's going to be enough to win the fight. Even if it's somewhat competitive, he might hurt Hank or put him down just in those 3 or 4 rounds that he chooses to fight. So,
do you think Broner?
I don't care for it though. And as far as Ivan Redcatch, I don't know what's going on with that fight, but at least with Ivan over Hank, I think Ivan's a lot more durable. He would bring the fight. He went 12 with Danny Garcia. I think he would bring more of a fight, but I think Hank is a better boxer. So I don't know. It's the same thing with me. It doesn't really change much.
Yeah. Do you think Broner stops Hank? Or do you think he goes the distance?
He's probably got to go the distance, bro.
You think so? Okay. Interesting.
Yeah.
Calix, what's going on with Adrian Broner? He's in Florida. He's on the Fresh and Fit podcast. He's surrounded on a table by a bunch of women. He's drinking alcohol. He's partying. Is he going to be ready for this fight? February 25th, baby.
No, actually, I'm happy for Broner that he's got this contract and he's taking advantage of BLK Prime at that point, because BLK Prime is at that point that Rock Nation found themselves in, and SMS and Dash DeBella. These guys come into boxing, but they need to overpay fighters on the front end, right, in order to get things going. And Broner's taking advantage of that. If this contract is real, the 3-fight deal for $10 million plus, I'm happy for Broner because, to me, like Wave was just saying, he seems like a guy disinterested in boxing, but he's got a lot of things going on outside of boxing, a lot of overhead, a ton of overhead, probably mismanaged money. And you hate to see fighters in that position. And I'm happy for him that he's getting this money late, being overpaid late, because if you look at the ratings of his fights, the past few fights, the Broner that we knew 10 years ago is not the Broner. People aren't interested. The market's not interested anymore. So he's being paid above market, well above market value for what he's doing at this point in his career. He hasn't had, I mean, when's the last win we saw Broner have that was like, wow? I mean, 10 years, it's been 10 years since he beat Malignaggi. It's been 4 years till this day. 4 years ago today, he lost to Manny Pacquiao. It's just not there anymore. And I actually think this is a more winnable fight and a more marketable fight than the Red Catch fight. I thought he was going to lose to Red Catch. I don't know what's going on with Red Catch, but I thought he was going to lose that fight. I think he's going to win the Lundy fight, and I think it's going to go the distance because if you look at Lundy's resume, he's lost 11 out of his last 20, and he's lost his last 4, and he's lost 6 out of his last 8. Those are not good trends, but he's only been knocked out once in that run, I believe, in the recent run. So he's at least losing decisions. He's durable, but, you know, to saying his legs are – he's 39. He's up there. Like, he's 39, and he's been in some wars. So this is a winnable fight for Broner. I don't think Lundy's going to upset him. It's a winnable fight. And on the surface, it's actually a decent matchup. I like the matchup. I'm not going to pay $40 for it. I'm just not. I'm out the market for that. I'm not going to pay.
How about Blair Cobbs?
Blair Cobbs is another one. Like Blair Cobbs, from what I understand, is a free agent. So why not do that fight next if he beats Hank Lundy? That's another fight that you can get some people to buy.
Blair Cobbs will beat Broner, bro.
He can. That's what I'm saying. And I would pick him over. I would pick him over Broner. Blair Cobbs can win that fight. But those are like interesting fights for this point in Broner's career, I feel. Like Broner versus Lundy still. Like if you would have put that on regular TV, I would have watched it. I would have. That'd have been fun.
Yeah.
And the way Hank talks to build up a fight, oh my God, people are going to be excited.
I wonder if DeGuardia is having problems with this company, if there's some money issues or something like that. Because if fighters are complaining they're having issues, I wonder if it's just an issue of money or something like that. Because a lot of times these smaller promoters they struggle because they don't have the television deals. And the only time that DeGuardia really has some success is with Joe Smith, because he's got a deal with Top Rank as well. So he's part of like a promotion type situation. So Base. What do you think of this matchup? What's going on with Red Catch? And do you think Lundy got a shot here?
Okay, so the Red Catch thing, not my business, not my neck of the pond. I know nothing about it, so is what it is. In terms of Lundy and Broner, yeah, I agree with you guys. It's actually a lot more competitive than it should be. That may be a concern, but I guess for the public who are going to pay for it, that's a plus, because you don't really want a blowout. You know, the lack of activity from Broner is going to give Lundy definite chances and opportunities within the fight. Does Lundy have the necessary chin left to take a Broner shot? Because Broner does crack. When he does decide to let his hands go, he can shoot a good one. Obviously, Lundy's coming up from the lower weights naturally, and I guess where the fight's going to be at. Broner's going to be overweight, but there's going to be more weight to the punches. How much did the Robbie Davis Jr. loss take out of him? Obviously, getting knocked out in the second round of that is highly embarrassing for him and his brand. But yeah, I think it would be a decent enough fight. BLK Prime, I think we still got to pay for it over here, so that won't be getting my money, but I'll check it the next day.
So Lukey's going to be the only one on the. Well, I think I'll buy it too.
I'm gonna buy it.
I'm buying it, Lukey. You convinced me to buy it,
We're
Lukey.
gonna text.
Hey, just to throw out one thing real quick, like a quick question is: how long do y'all see BLK Prime surviving? Do y'all think that this could be a thing, or is this just one of those that's going to flame out?
Maybe a year and a half.
As long as the money needs washing, it will be around.
I think 2 to 3 years. 3 years tops.
Boxing sustains. Like what boxing besides like old money? What sustains?
That's true.
Yeah,
that's true. That's true. So last topic of the evening, we have another agreed to terms story, courtesy of our old friend Mike Coppinger.
Oh,
he says he's reporting that Naoya Inoue and Stephen Fulton have agreed to terms. I know Calix is excited about this.
Woo!
They've agreed to terms in May. Now, I tweeted out a tweet today of all the fights that said agreed to terms that didn't happen. Once again, I'm going to be a negative Nelly. I thought Stephen Fulton was talking about going up to 126, that he didn't need Inoue. So I haven't heard anything from the fighters themselves saying that this fight is going to happen. So do you guys believe that this fight is going to happen, number one? And would it be better for Fulton to go up to 126, or does he need this fight for his legacy? We'll start with you. We'll start with you, Base. What are your thoughts on this whole potential matchup here?
So, I, like most people, I'm always very critical of PBC fighters these days, and generally speaking, I'm very much of the belief that names get used for clout, and then ultimately nothing ever happens. The only person who I never ascribed that to, regardless, was Sean Porter. Outside of that, I always thought that Fulton was just another person tacking his name onto someone else who with a higher profile and more accomplishments. The fact that it appears that they've done some kind of deal and it was sort of done directly without sort of the consultation of Showtime, PBC, Al Heyman, Steven Espinoza, and all of that. If that is the case and that is true, then I have to reassess and relook at sort of my opinion on Stephen Fulton in this situation. Like, I've never had any doubts about his abilities. Always thought he was an amazing fighter. I just always thought also that he was doing from the PBC playbook. Speak about someone else to promote your upcoming fight. I hope this one happens, and if it does, I will take back any criticism I've ever labeled at him, because outside of that, as I said, he's a very talented person.
Wave, are we being sold Wolf tickets again, or is this fight going to happen in May? What do you think?
I actually believe it, man. Once I saw the schedule, the revamped schedule with Showtime, with Figueroa is going to be fighting with Mark Magsayo.
Mark Magsayo, yeah.
They switched things around a little bit, and I believe it. I think that one thing about the PBC is that I know they don't normally let their fighters drift off and leave Showtime, but I think certain fighters, they're willing to take the risk if the money and the star is that big, kind of like Andy Ruiz with AJ. I think certain fighters, they will let that happen. Being this fight is going to be in Japan, I'm sure he's going to get paid a lot to go over there to do it. I believe it's real. I mean, this is boxing at the end of the day. Things could fall apart quickly. But I think this is really going to happen. I believe it will happen. And I love this fight. I think this is one of the best matchups that we can get in boxing right now. They both have a lot to prove. Fulton's talked a lot about this fight for the last couple of years. I've seen him in interviews, very cocky, very confident in beating Inoue. And a lot of people that criticize Inoue and say that he has no one going on his resume but an old Donaire, this will prove, if Inoue is legit, this fight here will prove that. It's an excellent fight. I can't wait to see it. And I'm still unsure of how the fight is going to go if it does go down. Hopefully it does.
Can I just piggyback off of Wave's comment a moment real quick?
Go right ahead.
I think I just sort of thought about as he was saying it, one of the reasons why the PBC and Showtime might actually be willing to allow this to happen is because even if it ends up being on ESPN Plus, being in Japan, likely it's going to be 6 o'clock in the morning, 6 o'clock. So only the real hardcore fans are going to be up to watch it. And then if he loses, well, you can kind of come back and rehabilitate to the US market, and maybe the casual people won't be aware of really what happened. They're not really going to do the research for it. And if he wins, then they'll probably end up buying part of the rights to the highlights or on all of their social media. He'll be all over there. Look what he just done to the most feared guy in the, you know, in the Eastern Hemisphere and blah, blah, blah. So I just thought that might be another reason why they possibly would allow it. Just the time difference and it not being to the main audience might be worth the gamble.
Wave, I'm going to put you on the spot here. If you were to put a percentage on how the percentage on the likelihood of this fight happening, what percentage would you put?
I think there's a 70% chance the fight will happen.
That's not bad. That's not bad.
Yeah.
Calix, am I being a little too hard on our friend Cappinger? Is he capping here, or is this the truth?
I don't know. The fact that Donovan reported it, though, he seems to be more solid. So that gives me a little more assurance. I understand people's I understand why people are reluctant, because I am too, with all the false reporting. January 10th, Dan Rafael reported that the fight was set between him and Figueroa at 126 at the Armory in Minnesota. Never walked it back. You know, no retraction, nothing. And now he's out there reporting pay-per-view numbers for Tank, and we're supposed to take that at his word. So the reporting, you just can't trust it. Boxing media is boxing media, so it's best to just stay reluctant. But I do believe it's going to happen for multiple reasons. One, the Magsayo versus Figueroa domino that fell for early March, that tells me that that's likely pointing in the direction of Inoue versus Fulton happening for May or June. But also, Fulton, his live gate for his last fight, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was somewhere around 60,000. So he's just not selling tickets. I think they did over 4,000 fans there at the Armory, maybe close to 6,000, but I think only 1,500 or something were actually paid customers. So it's not like this guy is a big cash cow. Another reason I tend to believe it is the lower weight classes, since these guys don't have as many monetary options, it more resembles a sport down there than it does in upper weight classes. So it more resembles a sport than business. And I just think Fulton is going to take this shot on Inoue. I do. And what makes this a great fight for the people out there who are maybe detractors or whatever is I don't understand. It just has to be ignorance towards the lower weight classes, this dismissive opinion of Inoue from some people. The guy's 19-0. He's fought 19 straight title fights. And he's done it throughout 3 weight classes. He's fought in 4 weight classes up to this point. 19-0 with 16 knockouts.
And he should have a belt in another division, by the way.
Right, correct. And on top of that, they're dismissive of him because they simply don't know the names. This guy has a lot of wins that are comparable to, say, a Bud Crawford beating a Sean Porter, but they simply don't know the names. So Inoue is already a Hall of Famer. Inoue is already one at the lowest, number 3 pound for pound. It's Inoue, Usyk, Crawford, in whatever order you want to put him in. So he's there, right? And then Fulton Jr., I think rightfully feels disrespected by a lot of the media. He's looking at some of these pound for pound rankings and not seeing his name on there. So he's either on the tail end of the pound for pound or right on the outside of it. So it has divisional implications in that Inoue is looking at this guy coming up with all of this praise, and he's like, this is my division. It's my division. Don't come up here. So it's got 122 division implications, but on top of that, it's got pound for pound implications. If Inoue wins this fight, he's pound for pound number 1. Well, Usyk's going to have his case with Fury too. If Usyk beats Fury, he's got a good case too.
He's not beating the best heavyweight of all time. But go ahead.
but if Inoue beats Fulton, he's got a strong case at that point, number 1. And then if Fulton beats Inoue, I don't want to hear anything about a smaller guy. This is a special generational talent in Inoue. And if Fulton wins that fight, you got to start talking number 5 pound for pound, like that sort of talk, right? He's going to catapult up the pound for pound rankings, up those charts. But what makes it interesting is I always love these fights. Like I did a video about Manny Pacquiao the other day. This dude competed in 11 out of 17 boxing 17 weight classes. I don't think people understand that. They're calling him a juicer, and that's fine. But how many dudes are juicing out of their minds? None of them are competing in 11 out of 17 weight classes. This dude is competing in 11 out of 17 weight classes. And what makes that special is, and by the way, a fun stat is Pacquiao only had 3 knockouts in 18 fights at welterweight. So even though he didn't carry his weight, his power up to welterweight, he still won in other ways. But once you reach that 5th weight class, B, that's when that resistance really starts to show, right? We saw it with Canelo is one of them. Canelo starts off around welterweight, 175. It's like, no, go back down. And once you reach that 5th weight class, that's generally when you meet that resistance, right? And Inoue's in his 5th weight class now. So he's facing the best fighter in the 5th weight class, much like Canelo against Bivol. Let's see what he can do. That's what makes this interesting to me is, will he shatter that and start talking about 126, 130? I don't think so. But if he can win this fight at 122, people will start talking like that, right?
Yeah. Lukey, what do you think, man?
Alex is my guy, man. So he basically said what I'm thinking, but like, there's 100% chance this fight's happening.
Whoa! Whoa!
Why wouldn't it happen?
Whoa!
Somebody tell me why it wouldn't happen. How would we
base?
accept anything less than this if we're told this?
100% base.
Yo,
100%.
yo, quick question. Sorry to butt in. Do you guys feel that, with all of the Al Heyman, not letting his fighters step outside of the box, do you guys feel that the fighters are a little bit responsible too, and sometimes they hide behind Al Heyman and they just don't want to take certain fights outside of the
that
PBC?
base. Is it really Al Heyman or is it the fighters? Because
It's a good question.
Sean Porter fought everybody, and he's an Al Heyman fighter.
It's both.
Fighting everybody.
I think it's both. It's one of those situations where he obviously, I guess, has final say. And if you make up enough noise, then he might allow you to. But I also think it's a case of the type of contracts. Because remember, Sean Porter would have been on the old school contract before they had network deals. So at that point, it's just the advisory contract. Whereas some of these, even though they haven't got
Danny Jacobs.
Yeah, Daniel Jacobs, sorry, yeah. And Sean Porter, those guys. But then you've got, like, when the networks came in, maybe now it's almost like a bit of a rights deal as well. So you don't have as much control. And I guess the only way you get that control is if either you're not one of their main breadwinners in terms of, like, their high profile guys, or you're so big that they can't tell you you can't go anywhere, kind of thing. Like, you just got that big marquee name, which none of them have. So I think Al says, okay, well, look, you can't really take that fight because we need you for over here. We don't know when it's going to be, so you can kind of have this little bit of money, and we'll, that'll tide you over till we find you something comparable. And then the comparable never actually happens, but they're used to getting that free bit of change to which offsets that in their mind. That's how I kind of see it.
I think it's the opposite, and I'm gonna be but like, I like Base because I think he's a good guy, but I think the fighters need to stand up for themselves and say, I want this fight, because I don't think Al Heyman is standing in the way of the fights. I think the fighters are saying, what are the other options?
Yeah. I think Stephen Fulton really.
Charlo's taking hard fights consistently. Al Heyman is not standing in his way.
From what I was told, and this is what I was told, I don't know how true this is. Al Heyman will put 3 fighters' names on the table and say,
that's every promoter, bro.
Yeah,
a lot of promoters do that shit.
Yeah, and
I think Steve Fulton really wants this fight. I think he
think
really wants it, and the reason why I asked that is because there's like the Jeff Horn situation.
I don't know this.
Any of those guys could have gotten that fight with him when he beat Manny Pacquiao.
Sure.
Errol, Danny Garcia, because Danny Garcia was the first one to jump up and say, I'll take that fight. He was the first one to tweet it after that fight.
Yeah. And
they would have made that fight happen. But once Bud got the belt, it was all promotional, you're on the wrong side of the street.
You remember when they announced Benavidez as his opponent, and I believe it was supposed to be for January. Who was that originally supposed to be? And you remember the blowback on that?
Kentucky?
Tigwe. And the blowback was tremendous on that. Tremendous. And David Benavidez came out and said this just can't happen. And to Wave's point, and I understand why you're asking it, is it's almost hard to tell at points. Is I think when Benavidez started to see the blowback this past year or so, he's like, I need to take control of this. I need to get control of this situation. Like, I can't just keep going like this and being told you might get a fight date here and it's going to be this guy. I need to get the Caleb Plant fight. I can't wait around for Canelo. And I think those guys, I think Benavidez and Caleb Plant took matters into their own hands and knocked on doors after that Usyk-Tigwe fight was announced. And I think that's why it was switched immediately. And another reason this is an important question is, like, if people see Stephen Fulton Jr. demanding this fight with Inoue and getting it, why can't Errol Spence demand the fight publicly with Bud Crawford and get it? Why doesn't it get the beat? Like,
who really wants to fight? You can tell,
right?
I
So
think
the thing is, like, why would your advisor advise you as the cash cow? We're being told you're the cash cow in a super fight to take zero guaranteed dollars. You know, but either way, like, I feel like Errol Spence should be taking control of the situation and saying, no, man, we got to figure this out. Like, nobody leaves the room until we figure this out. And whether that's happening or not, I don't know. But man, it's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating to watch.
I think
in the block so we can see his opponent again and drive off. That's all.
Yeah. I think they're advised certain things, the fighters, and I think they can choose, but I just think probably some of them say to themselves, well, I'm paying this guy to advise me, so if I'm paying this guy to advise me, I might as well take what he says and follow it. But not everyone does that. I mean, I think Wilder wanted the Fury fight, you know, and probably should have took the Joshua fight instead, right? But you know, it is what it is. And like I said, Porter's the prime example. He fought everybody. He fought Danny Garcia. He fought Errol Spence. You know, he fought Keith Thurman. He fought Ugas. He even went across the street and fought Terrence Crawford. So I think if the fighter does put their foot down and say this is what I want, they can make it happen, right?
And look at Ryan Garcia right now. I don't think that fight with Tank happens.
No, it's not happening.
I think, to me, no, I mean, I don't think it happens if Ryan Garcia doesn't go out and politic for it openly, Instagram, Twitter, to where ESPN's reporting on it. And he's saying, look, Oscar, Al, DAZN, Showtime, get in the same room, get this done. I want the fight. I don't think this fight happens if Ryan Garcia, or at least gets to the point where it's at right now, if Ryan Garcia is not openly out there pushing for it, because whatever we think about Tank as a fighter, I think he's agnostic as to who he fights. I do. Like, I remember watching the podcast when they're asking him, do you knock on the doors and ask for these fights? And he's like, no. I think he's dismissive to it. As long as the money's falling in his lap, I think he's fine. So you have fighters like that, and then you have fighters like Ryan Garcia who seem to want the fights, Benavidez, Plant, and Stephen Fulton Jr., guys I think who are seeing the situation playing out and saying, you know, I don't like this. I want to take control of my career.
Are they even allowed to talk business? It seems like they're now even allowed to call out certain people after fight.
Yeah.
I don't know what they're.
You know what? And I brought that up. Remember Caleb Plant when he fought Truex, I believe it was. I think it was PBC on Fox. And he did not look good. He looked average, but that was the point. That was his, like, he did the post-fight interview, and I'm yelling at the TV because they're asking him, who do you want next? They're trying to set it up for him. And he's like, I need to talk to Al Heyman and see what Al. And it's like, no, man, this was your moment to call out Canelo, WWE style, and say, I want the Canelo fight for all the belts. And he simply didn't do it. And that's the frustrating part.
Yeah. All right, guys, that's about it for this week. Shout out to D-Style on administrative leave. And thank you, everyone, for being on. Thank you, Wave. Thank you, Base. Thank you, Calix. Thank you, everybody in the chat. And we will catch up with you guys next Thursday. Take it easy, guys.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Thanks for having me, bro.
No problem. Thanks for coming on.